So you think $1 a mile is good money for doing a brokered opportunity? If this is your first time checking out the Get Geezer, if you're a returning visitor of the Get Geezer, hey, thanks for coming by. And if you would not mind, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. Today is Monday morning, April 22nd, 2024. I am probably about 20 minutes away from a pickup location in which I'm doing a brokered opportunity from Duncan, South Carolina to the Atlanta airport area. The loaded miles is 170. My line haul for this is $400, meaning that I'm getting $2.30 plus cent a mile. Now, I don't talk a lot about dollars per mile because dollars per mile, as I've shared in various segments of the Get Geezer, doesn't excite me. What I'm looking at is the dollar amount for the actual opportunity and for the work involved. But when I look at other content here on YouTube, I see how folk pretty much their rationale or their rationalization for the opportunities that they get, or what they use as that standard is $1 a mile. I suppose that is the accepted standard, but it's not for me. Now, I have been booking opportunities. I have been booking my own brokered opportunities for over a year now, and I can tell you to date, if I used $1 per mile test, every last one of my opportunities, loaded miles, have been over $1 a mile. I've had some really good ones too, but in which they were, like, for example, there was one that was like 20 miles. They paid $315. That's $15 a mile, brokered opportunity. But that's an outlier. By and large, though, a lot of the opportunities that I've gotten have been at a minimum. Just about all of them have been at a minimum $1.50 a mile. Many of them have been over $2 a mile. Now, why am I talking about $2 a mile as opposed to $1 a mile? Well, to me, $2 a mile seems more justifiable for the trips that I'm doing. I cannot see myself driving 200 miles and I'm saying I'm making $200. I can't see myself say I'm driving 700 miles and I make $690. I just can't do that. When I have shared some long distance opportunities, the few of them that I've done, I have earned well over $1 a mile. Probably more like, I guess that number comes down because who's really gonna, if you're gonna drive 1,200 miles, I don't think anybody's gonna be most people are not gonna be willing to pay you $2,500. But you know what? When I did my very first brokered opportunity, which was from Charlotte to San Antonio, I got over $1,400 for that, and I drove 1,200 miles. Of course, I was kind of stunned that I even booked the opportunity because I didn't even expect it. It showed up, and I'm like, you know what? I think I got a chance to stop off in Houston with this. And so I told my queen, if this is still up, and after a couple more minutes, I'm going to book this, and we're going to Texas. And that's exactly what happened. I did book some opportunities that went up to Virginia, and ultimately I earned decent money on those trips. But I'm thinking about the trips to Texas because I made 3 trips to Texas last year. The second one was from Charlotte to Dallas. I got 1,100, and I believe the miles on it was like 900 or 900 plus. So you do the math. And then the last one was from Charlotte to Temple, Texas. And we're talking probably about the same number of miles, about 1,000 miles. I got 1,350. So you see where I'm going. Based on what I'm seeing with content from other drivers, many of them may be hitting the road for much less. And I get that you're rolling, you're moving, you got money coming in, but at what cost? And I know I've talked so far for about 5 minutes, and if you like the content that's been provided in this segment or in any other segment, hit the subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. But I think about the costs of doing business. And I know people often use as a measuring stick cost of doing business your cost per mile. And I've done a number of segments on cost per mile. I've not I have not calculated any cost per mile in 2024 because I just hadn't done it this year. I know that in 2023 my cost per mile got down into the 60-cent range, somewhere in the 65 to 70-cent range, and that I was earning somewhere around $1.40 a mile overall. So that meant that my profit was somewhere about in the upper 60s to 75 cents per mile. Okay. That said, just think about how much money you're putting into your tank. I saw recently a guy mention that what he tries to do in his strategy of grossing somewhere about 3 G's a week, he's also driving over 3 G's, 3,000. He's also driving over 3,000 miles. And I mentioned last year in one segment, the Gig Geezer, that for some, while size equals money, for others who do over the road, and that is their lifestyle, miles equals money. So they equate miles equal into money. So if they know that they're driving 3,000 miles that week, they're looking at making about $3,000. I'm not mad at you, okay? I'm not mad at you. But personally, if I'm putting in 3,000 miles, I'm looking to make at least 4,000. Somewhere between 4,000 and 4,500. That's just me now. Now, another thing is that some of these guys are also use dispatchers, or they're driving for a carrier. And so they pretty much are taking whatever the best offer that comes through that medium. I book my own opportunities, so I'm expecting more. And I guess that is one of the differences. So that means then if let's say if you are booking your opportunities like I am, and if you do a run like this, 170 miles, and you get maybe $200, I'm going to call you a candy ass, because you're in business for yourself. You don't have, as some would say, you don't know your worth. You must don't know what your true cost of business is. You must don't know how much you really can make on many of these opportunities. Now, admittedly, one of the things that has helped me so far to be able to say these things is that I have gotten comfortable with negotiating for opportunities. And it does not bother me to hang up on these brokers in mid syllable. Forget mid sentence syllable. The other thing is that what has helped me out is, I think over time I have earned the trust and confidence of a few brokers, and so I am getting opportunities they're paying me more than what they are paying some of the opportunities that I've seen by the same brokers that have been posted on load boards. For example, I'm thinking of one now that I saw this morning. Same trip that I've done multiple times. My base number is 450. The range that I've typically been paid for that run is between 450 and 550. They posted it on the load board for 300. And it's a 245 mile trip. Yeah. It's a big difference. That's a big difference. You're talking $150 difference. $150 to $250 difference depending on how much I'm transporting. So one thing that I'm going to share, as I've mentioned before, is that since I am not over the road and I do things somewhat in a 3-hour radius, regionally that is, based on where I'm going, I look for a certain dollar amount. It's that simple. And if a broker is not willing to meet me at that dollar amount, again, I am not afraid to hang up in mid-syllable on that broker. All right, I just picked up, as you can tell on this, what you notice on the still shots is that I just picked up a pallet that's going to Atlanta. The pickup location here in Duncan, South Carolina, is a place that actually manufactures the seats for BMWs and Volvos. Yeah, in fact, when I happened to look in, I saw a bunch of headrests, and then I saw the actual frames, the frames to the actual seats that are manufactured or put together and then shipped out to either over here in next door in Greer.
Try saying a device name like phone or US,
or in Ridgeway, which is where the Volvo plant is. Now this guy is about to have a bad day. I am waiting for this guy to back in, and he's about to nail a trailer in the process. So he decides then to pull up and go somewhere else. What happened was he kept backing up into this particular trailer, the one that ends in 175. And I am about to get the hell on away from here before he backs up into me. Looks like it's going to be a bad day for this guy. So, my total trip time, I always give myself extra time when it's going to Atlanta. In fact, what's interesting about this is that I got to make 2 stops in Atlanta. The first one is to get the actual air documents, and that they got to remeasure. They've got to remeasure everything, and then they'll generate the air documents. And then I go from there to the actual drop-off cargo terminal. That's unusual because for me, normally I have the actual air documents with me. Now, what I didn't realize though was that where I just picked up from is basically next door to a place that I've dropped off on a couple of occasions on a different app. So what you find is that you start seeing places, you start traversing familiar territory. But next time so what I'm going to do is pick up the conversation once I'm in Atlanta. So that'll be about 3 hours away. All right, so I've made it to Atlanta, and I'm at the first place, which is called a cartridge. And a cartridge place is, I guess, based on my experience, and I guess maybe a fair definition is that it's kind of an intermediary, at least in the Atlanta market, in which cartage by definition handles things on a short distance and freight handles things on a longer distance. And so many of the trips that I've had to Atlanta have been either to a cartage place or the airport. If I drop off for the freight at the airport, it's going a long distance. Typically they're going overseas. But when I've dropped off to another place, Ellenwood, Georgia, which is Atlanta suburb, it's a freight cartage. It's a cartage place, and you don't need as many documents. But I guess from what I can tell, what they do is they remeasure the freight and then put together all the airline documents that are needed for that specific cargo or freight that you've just dropped off. So that's why they told me I had 2 stops, and it didn't occur to me that I had 2 stops until I really looked at my when I looked at my rate confirmation sheet, and I'm like, oh, yeah, they weren't driving. I got 2 stops to make here in Atlanta. So what you saw there in that quick video there is where the actual pallet was brought back to the van after they remeasured it, and now they're producing the actual airline documents that I'll be taking over to the airport to actually drop off. Now that's kind of a good transition to what's been this particular topic of the Gig Geezer. Now, when I take into, now I've mentioned this before though, but what I do is I do take into account my time with the line haul that I've negotiated. One thing I'll say is that depending on what it is, you're gonna and for the time that for the duration of which you're going to be traveling, for the duration in which you're going to be out, it could be for the entire time or just for the time that you're doing loaded miles. I figured that a person can make, and I remember CJ mentioned this in one of his videos recently though, but even when you're doing brokered opportunities, you can make anywhere between $50 and $150 an hour. I don't like using dollars per hour, but I think that's a number that people can understand. For example, the last brokered opportunity that I had was actually a local one in the Columbia, South Carolina metropolitan area, and it was a 30-mile trip. I was paid $150. 30-mile trip, $150, dropping off one pallet. That trip took me all of, about an hour and a half. So if it took me an hour and a half, that meant I made $100 an hour. Or if you talk dollars per mile, it was $5 a mile. So those are the things that you got to take. Those are the things that I believe that are important when you are negotiating for opportunities. You're looking to be paid for your time, but you're also looking to be paid to cover your expenses and make some money in the process. And by the way, if you like the content that's been provided in this segment or in any other segment, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. Alrighty, it's several hours later, like a couple hours later, and I'm just now leaving the cartage place. I waited for basically 2 hours to get my documents that I'll need to submit to the air cargo place. And as I left the first time, I thought that I had all the paperwork that was given to me. You see all this paperwork here, but there was one important piece that was missing. They did not hand me my original delivery order that had my signature and the signature of someone from Greenville or Duncan, the originating place. I need the original delivery order as a proof of delivery when the guy who works the forklift unloads the pallet off of the van and he signs. That's how I get paid, and that's how I document that it's been delivered. So I'm probably now, because it's later in the afternoon, probably about 15 minutes away from the air cargo terminal, and I'll resume the conversation from there. All right, I am done way later than I should have been done. In fact, I should be in Columbia by now, but things just don't go the way you draw them up on the chalkboard or where you anticipate. About 10 minutes ago, I just finished, as you can see here on the B-roll, this pallet was delivered at the Delta cargo facility as opposed to American Airlines, because that's where they told me to go initially. And the problem again was that from America Airlines, it just went sideways. It went sideways, upside down, you name it, every other direction known to man. And so what ended up happening was I finally got a hold of the broker who actually put this together, and he emailed me the correct address, in fact, where it's supposed to be handled by Delta. That information was sent by email, and I kind of just held my breath once I got here, hoping that, hey, I got to the right place and I didn't have to go back over to American Airlines, which is basically 5 minutes from here. So what I'm looking at is almost 3 hours of wait time, but it was 5 hours total. As I've mentioned on a number of segments of the Get Geezer, detention time is something that the brokers like to move the goalposts on with you. But this has been well documented, and we're talking almost 3 hours. And so I should get at least $125 out of this. So I'm anticipating having earned $525 on this particular run. Total miles, at least loaded miles, about 175, and that would translate into about $3 a mile, at least loaded miles. If I were to talk about hours spent, if I were to go from when I left home to when I get back home, which is probably going to be much later, the dollars per hour don't look good. We're talking just under $40 an hour, but that happens when you're dealing with when you actually do certain road opportunities. This is the worst case. This is the worst case scenario. But let's go back to the initial thought about dollar mile. Obviously, for loaded miles, this is going to be $3 a mile. And actually, as it turns out, total miles driven, if I'm paid $525, I will have covered all my miles driven today as well. It's the second time. That's the second time in 3 trips lately that I've actually covered all my miles driven based on money to be paid. So that's a good thing. Hopefully, what I hope that y'all get out of this is that you can't be timid asking for your money. You can't be timid asking for your money, man. And if you're in a situation where you can get more than $1 a mile, go for it. I've been talking about this in several uploads of the Get Geezer lately, and I'm saying it again because I see people really feeling as if they've got reason to pimp their walk and grab their Johnson because they got right at about $1 a mile. I get it that when you're doing over the road, it may be a different ball game, but it doesn't hurt to still try to get your money. Get your money. All right, obviously I'm talking from a different day, time, and setting, and obviously different clothes because it's now 2 days later since I last spoke on this Duncan to Atlanta brokered opportunity. The reason being is that I was going to wait until yesterday, Tuesday, April 23rd, to wrap things up based on the revised rate confirmation. I did not receive it until this morning, Wednesday, April 24th. Come to find out, this broker submitted for 2 hours, which is about an hour less than what I thought that I should have gotten. But as I mentioned previously, when it comes to wait time, the brokers do like to hem and haw on you, and they like to move the goalposts. Secondly, though, come to find out, they pay $35 an hour and not $50 an hour, which is what I've received from other brokers. So that means I got total payment of $470 on this. And so if you were to break down the numbers on loaded miles, it came out to just south of $2.85 a mile. If you look at the overall miles, which is what I had spoken before, if I'd gotten a $525, what I initially anticipated, then that would have covered all the miles that I drove. And that would have been a very good situation, particularly in today's economy, and in the ownership and operation of a Sprinter/cargo van. So the other set of numbers I mentioned about the hours involved. Well, again, if I were to look based on dollars per hour, when it comes to brokered opportunities, this would be a disaster, because this would have been more like about $35 an hour. That's not good. Obviously, if I had not waited all that time in Atlanta, then it probably would have been more in line with the numbers that I'd mentioned before, anywhere between $50 and $100 an hour. So that's all I have to share with this segment of the Gig Geezer. Hopefully you got something out of it. And if you like the content that's been provided in this segment or in any other segment, hit that subscribe button. Give my content a thumbs up. Share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. I'm in Wood Lane. As always, may your grind and may your hustle continue.